In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 2 reasons why apple cider vinegar might actually help treat your SIBO, and 1 potential drawback that a few of you probably should know about. Stay tuned to learn more. But whoa there, hold your horses, apple pun kind of intended. We can't talk about how an individual strategy would help us treat SIBO if we don't really understand how to treat SIBO. So just in case we've got some newbies among us, I'm going to give you the 30-second executive summary of what SIBO is and how we're going to treat it, okay? Bear with me. Here we have a normal, albeit horrifying and dissected human body. So we've got your brain, your GI tract, lips to anus, and you can see that we've got a whole abundance of beautiful, wonderful, helpful microbes living in our colon. That's how it should be. And then the quantity of bacteria throughout the rest of the GI tract should be scant by comparison. It's not to say it's sterile, it's not to say that there's no bacteria, but it is a peppering of bacteria relative to the quantity that's in the colon. But as the name indicates, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, that overgrowth is an increased quantity of bacteria somewhere in the small bowel where frankly we don't really want it to be. So when you're treating SIBO, part of the name of the game, a large part in my mind, is to get that overgrowth bacteria either to be dead, and that's what we do with the killing and starving tactics, or we're trying to get that bacteria to go down into the colon where it belongs. And when we do that, when we promote good motility and good movement from north to south, miraculous, wonderful things can happen, not only for SIBO, but also the symptoms that go with it. The bloating, the fullness, the belching, the just awful ickiness, the intolerance to FODMAPs. These things can resolve once we get good motility drummed up. And that's where we segue into the conversation with something like apple cider vinegar and how it might be useful for motility and how that good motility ends up impacting your SIBO and benefiting you as a SIBO sufferer. So number 1, probably the number 1 thing that gets talked about with regards to using apple cider vinegar, particularly before meals, is that it can help you boost stomach acid. And this doesn't seem like a big deal considering that everybody and their brother wants to suppress stomach acid. All of us, at least in America, are popping Tums and Prilosec and Zantac out the wazoo, and we tend to think of stomach acid as a bad, evil, horrible thing, when in actuality, we need stomach acid to digest our food. If you think about the GI tract, again, lips to anus. The food's coming in, it goes down a relatively short pipe. Note, this is not to scale. It goes down a relatively short pipe and then it winds up in the stomach, and that's where everything should get annihilated and either broken down or killed if it is a microbe. Well, if you don't have good stomach acid, you're not killing those microbes like you should, and now some of the microbes that you swallow all day in your food and your drink and your saliva ends up shacking up a little bit further downstream, which we end up calling the small bowel. So increased stomach acid can impact bacterial overgrowth in the sense of kind of having an antimicrobial quality in and of itself, but also strong stomach acid leads to better bile secretion and better enzyme secretion, and then that actually helps start your migrating motor complex and your motility. So it has this really nice domino effect for digestion, not only helping you digest your higher protein food and your B12 and your iron and the things you need stomach acid for, but also impacting digestion as a whole further down the tube, and ultimately your migrating motor complex and your motility. So as far as boosting stomach acid, promoting migrating motor complex quality, apple cider vinegar is a wonderful, wonderful tool for that. So let's draw increase HCl as the first mechanism. Now, here's the other thing that I think is really important to know about motility. It is primarily a neurological event. It is a neurologically orchestrated thing that happens. You don't just magically get motility unless your nervous system decides that it is so. And the part of the nervous system that we tend to care very much about in the SIBO world, because it runs the motility show, is this guy here. Your vagus nerve, one of your cranial nerves, comes down out of the brainstem, and this is not very anatomically sound, but you'll have to just deal with me here. Your vagus nerve has many, many projections, and it comes out of your brainstem and innervates or controls everything from basically your esophagus down to the first third or so of your colon. So that means your vagus nerve is going to impact things like stomach acid secretion, bile flow, enzyme production, whether or not you heal your gut lining, aka whether or not you have a leaky gut. Even things like inflammation levels in the spleen and the liver and your organs are somewhat influenced or controlled by the vagus nerve. And you guessed it, these are the neurons, these are the long reflexes, they're called, that initiate much of your motility and your migrating motor complex. So we want to have tip-top A+++ quality vagal control of our gut. Well, one thing that really inhibits vagal control and makes it difficult to have good vagal tone is high blood sugar. If your blood sugar is chronically high, or if you have really high blood sugar spikes, that actually is damaging to the vagus nerve, to a point where there was a study, and I'll try to find the citation and link it in the description for you if you want to check it out. There was a study a number of years ago where they looked at the girth of the vagus nerve in diabetic people versus non-diabetics, and they found that people with diabetes had shrunken vagus nerves. They actually had less girth, about 50% less girth to their vagus nerve compared to healthy normal controls who do not have that degree of blood sugar dysregulation. So because apple cider vinegar can help control blood sugar spikes and prevent larger spikes from the carbohydrates in your meal, apple cider vinegar actually might be really good for your vagus nerve in that indirect way. And for that matter, it could be really wonderful for the rest of your nervous system or any part of your body that's sensitive to glycemic control. Well, wait, Dr. DiNezza, you said at the beginning of this video and in the title of the video that there were 2 pros and 1 con. But this sounds all like pros. What could possibly be wrong with using apple cider vinegar to help manage or treat your SIBO? You get good blood sugar control, you get good vagal tone, you get stomach acid secretion, motility. This sounds like a win-win-win-win. Well, I would be foolish if I didn't at least mention this as a possibility for some of you. But as we're talking about this tool, it's apple cider vinegar that we're discussing here. So no, it has nothing to do with the apples and the FODMAPs. There's probably no FODMAPs in apple cider vinegar. But the vinegar in and of itself might be noteworthy, particularly if we think about how this is going to work. So I'm going to ask you to travel back in time. Come with me back to 10th grade or 11th grade chemistry class. And remember acids and bases. So acids would have a low pH, something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Neutral pH is about a 7. That's about the water that we drink. And a basic pH would be anything higher than a 7 or 8. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, the thing about apple cider vinegar versus stomach acid. Normal stomach acid is a pH of about 2 or 3, give or take, like 2.5, 3, somewhere in that range. So let's say 2.5, or let's say, oh, that's smeared, no, hold on. 2, 2, 3. Keep it simple. So if the pH of normal stomach acid is about 2 or 3, so if you have low stomach acid, maybe you're at like a 3, 4, or possibly even 5. I mean, if that's really bad, you're at a 5. Let's say that this is the pH that we're looking at down here. The pH of vinegar is also right about a 2 or a 3. And if you think about the quantity of apple cider vinegar you're taking with your meal, it's not that much. Compared to the volume of your stomach, if you take a teaspoon or maybe a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in water, and the apple cider vinegar to start with has at the absolute lowest a pH of 2 or 3, I don't really think that it's a mechanism of adding acid to your stomach and then the pH of the apple cider vinegar acidifying your stomach. I personally don't think that that's how it works. What I think probably is going to happen is one of 2 things. One of these mechanisms might be concerning for some of you. So I think the first possibility is that it has nothing to do with the stomach in and of itself, but the taste on our tongue might trigger a neurological reflex that then increases stomach acid or secretions. And I know that sounds like really out there, and we haven't talked about this on my channel, but I will share with you. This mechanism here, by the way, this is the best tongue I can do on the fly here on YouTube. This mechanism here is actually proposed for the reason why vinegar can help with muscle cramps. If you have a Charlie horse or a muscle cramp, if you take vinegar or mustard, it almost immediately alleviates it. And there's no possible way that the vinegar or the mustard got from your mouth to your stomach down to your calf muscle in the nanosecond that it takes to work. So scientists are actually thinking that it's more of a reflex that's triggered when it hits the tongue or the esophagus, and then that neurological reflex tells the muscle to loosen and release the Charlie horse. So if that happens with something like a Charlie horse and a cramp, why couldn't it happen with stomach acid? That's my number one theory. My number two theory for how apple cider vinegar is actually helping us is via histamine receptors. So histamine receptors are very, very important in the production of stomach acid. So if you want to make more stomach acid, one of the ways you can accomplish that is by stimulating your histamine receptor. This is why H2 blockers like Zantac work, because they block that histamine receptor and that reduces your stomach acid. And vinegar is generally known to be a high histamine or a histamine triggering food. So you take the apple cider vinegar, it's the vinegar itself, it's the acetic acid that triggers a bit of a histamine release, and then that histamine release gives you more stomach acid in the stomach. Bada bing, bada boom, you're off to the races and you're digesting like a champion. But for people who are really histamine sensitive or have mast cell activation, that could be a potential problem for them. And they might want to boost stomach acid in a different way that doesn't involve the histamine receptor. So in folks like that, you actually might be better off doing something like a prokinetic to regulate your motility, or an adaptogen or a nervine to help with the gut-brain axis, or something like betaine HCl, rather than doing the apple cider vinegar in and of itself. Now, again, I'm gonna share this at this point in the video. Our knowledge of what foods contain histamine and which ones trigger histamine release is iffy at best. I'll link in the description down below. Chris Masterjohn did a video a number of years ago looking at this and looking at research, and the lists that you see on the internet are probably largely inaccurate, and I'm going to leave that for you to kind of muddle about yourself. The other thing to know here is that I actually heard, before she passed away, Yasmina, the low histamine chef, who was one of the authority figures in the low histamine world, I heard her say on a podcast a while back, years ago, that apple cider vinegar is usually fine for histamine people. It's almost always aged balsamic vinegars that are more of a histamine trigger for people. So take that with a grain of salt too. We don't really know for sure that apple cider vinegar is going to trigger a histamine response, but that is one of the proposed two mechanisms that this might work. And like I said, if you are really histamine sensitive, you just might want to go into the apple cider vinegar thing with a little hint of caution. Better safe than sorry. Keep your wits about you. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, well, maybe now you know a little bit more about why. Now, despite my best efforts to make this super easy peasy for you, there's a chance that you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed and daunted by what I just taught you. Oh my God, how do I know if I have a histamine issue? That's new news to me. What do I do if I do have a histamine issue? Do you treat the SIBO first or the histamine thing first? Or do you treat them together? Or do you not treat the histamine at all? What the heck do you do? How do I make stomach acid on my own? I don't want to drink vinegar for the rest of my life. Tell me more about this vagal tone motility thing. How do I get more of that? If you are asking any of these questions and you're feeling daunted or overwhelmed, first of all, I'd encourage you to just check out the rest of my library here on YouTube. I have like 8 gajillion videos on topics including stomach acid, histamine, vagal tone, motility, and I could probably help you here on YouTube. But if you don't relish the thought of going through my 300 some odd videos here on my channel or the 150 some odd episodes on the IBS Freedom podcast, there is another way. I'm going to be opening up my group coaching program, FODMAP Freedom, in the beginning of next year. So we're going to be opening again in January, and that's where I teach you A to Z, foundation up, how to heal your body, feel like $1,000,000, digest like a champion, poop like you wouldn't believe, and treat things like histamine and vagal tone and fold this all together with a nice little bow. And I really do my best to help support you through that process. We have about 6 Q&As live each week. We have an email that you can email in with questions every week. So I really think that that could be a ticket for many of you to say goodbye to SIBO or whatever might be ailing you in 2024. Now, if you're at all interested, I link it in the description of every video. But right now, since we're in the off season and we're not enrolling, what you could do is learn a little bit about the program and then join the waitlist. And all that means is that you're going to be the first to know when we open enrollment. You'll get some emails letting you know, hey, we're open. And then you'll have the opportunity to book a call with a FODMAP Freedom coach and learn more and learn if this program is a good fit for you or if we have another recommendation or something that you might want to do instead. So go ahead and check out that link down below. I will leave that there for you. And in the meantime, I will plan on seeing you right back here on this channel for the next video. Happy New Year. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, click the like button, and leave a comment down below with the videos that you would like to see me do next. Doing all of those really helps support the channel and support my efforts in making as many videos as possible for you guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.